Hello fellow mudders, it's Bruce here again, and it is time for us to pick our next project to build, and trying to go slowly up the line of complexity. I have three that we could look at to choose from. Two of them are from the Mantua line and one is from the Tyco line. First up would be a Mogul, which is a 260 wheel configuration, and has plastic cab, plastic boiler, plastic shell on the tender. And I would consider right now any one of these kits that has plastic uppers, so to speak, being next in line in terms of complexity. Once we start getting die-cast boilers and die-cast tenders, then there's a lot of filing and painting and so forth that goes on with that too. So what makes this one a little more complex than the roundhouse tank engine that we did, of course, is the fact that there's some fancy valve gear involved. And if you had looked at my previous video on valve gear upgrade kits, you'll know that there's a lot of riveting and so forth that goes into that, and that's why I would consider this to be a step up. So this 260 Mogul would be a possible choice. Also within the Mantua line is a 262 Prairie, and very much like the Mogul we just discussed, it's got a plastic cab, plastic boiler, plastic tender top, and again some fancy valve gear, all of which whose parts have to be riveted together. And really the exact same model in the Tyco line. Again, tender, cab, boiler, all plastic. Just as with the other two kits, the underframe of the tender is die cast, and the underframe for the chassis, if you will, for the locomotive is die cast as well. And you can see over here on this side all the various pieces for the connecting rods, the main rod, and the valve gear, and so forth. So for no real particular reason, I decided that what we'll go with is this Tyco kit, new in the box. It is absolutely identical to this Mantua Prairie, and I could have gone with that. And I'm leaving this one because it's still shrink wrapped, and if I decide not to build it but rather sell it, it'll be easier to sell if it remains shrink wrapped. So let's look at this Tyco kit. I started by taking the instruction sheet and Xeroxing it. I do that with all my builds, and I try to keep the originals, which sometimes are a little bit dried up and brittle. Keep those original instructions the way they are. Over on this side of the box are the plastic boiler shell, cab, and tender. And we'll just leave those right in the box because we're not going to need them right away. And then there's this box of all the rest of the parts, and we'll take that out a minute and spend a minute just looking at it and what's in there. And I will say that the build of this kit is going to parallel the build of the roundhouse tank engine, up to a certain point at least. Here's the die-cast underframe for the tender, and the frame for the chassis for the locomotive itself. Here we have some more die-cast parts, the weight for the engine, the bottom plate for the chassis, and the cylinder casting. Those are all die-cast, unpainted. Here's all of the trucks. Let's see if we got everything in there. It is the 6 drive wheels and the 2 tender trucks are in this package. Here's the motor with no wiring on it. And here's a package I do not want to open right now because it's got all of the rivets and small parts in it. And these rivets are going to drive me crazy because it is certainly tweezer work picking them up and inserting them. And anytime you have something gripped in tweezers, it's just as likely to go flipping off into the netherworld as end up where you want it. And let's see what else is in here. I see, yeah, I guess I'll call it the frame for both the leading truck and the trailing trucks are in here because this is a 262. And so are the 2 wheel sets. So these are, you know, all of the parts for assembling the running gear on the side and so forth. I'll leave the wheels out because we're going to be starting with, and I'll leave these castings out because I need the casting for the cylinder. And I will take these apart, ignore the tender frame for the moment, and I won't worry about the motor at the moment. So, just as with the roundhouse build, this is probably going to take more than one video. I'll try to keep it to 2 videos of about 25 minutes each if I can. I am not going to spend a lot of time now on this video showing you the filing of all the flash off of the chassis because I did that in some detail on the roundhouse video. So if you're interested in seeing that, go to the roundhouse video number 1 and you can see that there. Let me zero in a little bit and we'll look at some of this flash, and then I will just say that my friend is going to be a 6-inch flat mill bastard file, Nicholson brand, and some needle files to get into the tight places, and probably a round file to clean out a couple of screw holes, and you know, a half hour of fun filing and we should be in good shape. But let me zero in a little bit, zoom in, and see if we can't see some of the flash on this unit. And then after that I'll come back after I've done that filing. All right, as you look at this, you can see some flash down in here along the end of this these 2 posts down here in the bottom, inside here, inside this groove which is where the casting for the cylinders go. On the top we have to clean out the grooves for the axles, and yeah, we will do all that and then come back once I've done it. Okay, talk to you later. Okay, time for an update. Since last we talked, I have spent some quality time with my different size files and filed off all the flash and cleared out all the openings on the chassis of this 262 Tyco Prairie. I would say, oh, probably on the chassis it took me about 15 minutes, almost negligible time to file off the flash and clear out the holes on this base plate. And then probably about 25 minutes to clear all the flash off of the cylinder casting. And I've mentioned this before in other videos, but these castings have a two-part mold, and the split in the mold goes straight down this support, halfway through the cylinder, all across the base and up the other side, up that support. And the amount of flash that is comes out there depends on how old the molds are, and these must have been fairly bad because, like I said, there was significant flash here and here, and like I said, probably about 25 minutes of filing on that. Next up, after I got all the flash off, I took my NMRA gauge and measured the spacing on the drive wheels to make sure that they were in gauge, and they were. The center wheel, the one with the drive gear on it, is a blind driver, so it does not touch the rails. It doesn't have a flange on the wheel anyway, and the rear set has one traction tire on it, which is this one here, and the other driver, the front driver, doesn't have a traction wheel on it at all. You have to make sure that all of the insulated wheels are on the proper side, which in this case is the left side of the loco, as if you're sitting in the cab, so this side. So that's the traction tire one, and then the center and the front wheels. And those are all on the proper side now. I checked to make sure that all of those wheel sets went very smoothly in their grooves. There are no separate bearings on this model, so the grooves are nice and smooth after you spend a little bit of time with a round file. And put a little bit of oil in there, put the base plate on, and that's where we sit right now. The next step will be to add these four connecting rods. So you get one that connects the front to the center, another one that overlaps that and goes from the center to the rear, and once they're in place and working properly, and you test every step of the way. After you put the first one on, you make sure everything is still running smoothly, then you put the second one on, make sure everything's running smoothly, and then flip to the opposite side. Once those are in place, I'll take the motor, temporarily install it, and make sure that all three of those wheels are rotating nicely, and then go on to the next step. Spent a few minutes working on the motor. Had never been run, but the commutator had some built up, I'll call it corrosion, but it was not hard to get off. Cleared that up, tested it with some with my test wire, and it runs fine. So the next time you'll see me, we will be talking about how it operates and maybe show you everything operating with those connecting rods on. Talk to you then. Well, success at this point. I'll talk in a minute about exactly what we've done since the last update. But basically, I took those four connecting rods, and on the back side of the stampings there's always a little rough area. The fronts are very smooth. So I started by just using a bastard file and took a little bit of the roughness off, and then rubbed it back and forth on some 600 grit paper, wet dry paper, which I have right here, until they were nice and smooth. And then I assembled one side, making sure that everything was running smoothly. Then the other side, temporarily mounted the motor, and I've been running it for a few minutes, and you can see that everything is running pretty smoothly. If you hear some rumbling noises in the background, I'm having our deck replaced, and the guys are out there working, so that's what you're hearing. So yeah, what's next steps? Well, next steps normally would be to add the front and rear trucks. Both are two-wheel trucks, and get that running okay. But what I'm going to do next is take the motor off, take the wheel assembly off, take the base plate off, and then paint that chassis with a rattle can of black paint, and then reassemble it back up to this step, and then put those rear and front trucks on, and then we'll show a video when we get to that point. And after that, it's the tedious assembly of the valve gear with rivets, and I'll show you that as well. But for right now, this is where we are, and it's running fine. Let me just run it in the reverse position a minute. We'll see how that goes. And then there we are. So all is going pretty good at the moment. So we'll leave it there right now, and I'll disassemble things and paint them, and we'll see you again. This actually might be a good place to stop the video and make a second version, a second edition later. So, as I always say, if you enjoyed the video, give it a like, share the video with some friends, and if you would, and you haven't already, you can subscribe to my channel. All right, talk to you soon.